What is up, Watch fam? Hi, I'm Christian from Theo and Harris, and welcome to this week's episode of ASKTNH Live. I am live with my watch geeks here on Instagram. So go ahead and follow us on Instagram at Theo and Harris if you don't already, so you can next time participate in this episode of Live and ask me questions. And the winner gets a free t-shirt. So let's do it. All right, before we jump into your 3 or 4 questions, a quick wristwatch check. I am wearing a vintage Cartier, the newest addition to my collection. We've just released a collection review. You guys haven't seen it yet. It goes up on Monday, of my own collection. I jumped into all the stories, or a lot of the stories, and a lot of the meaning behind my personal watches. And this watch, this Cartier, is the only watch that has really no meaning. It's not something that my parents gave me. It's not something that I wore on a significant day, maybe one significant day, but that's really it. The watch is just a beautiful kind of clean canvas for me for what's to come, and that's really exciting. So it's fun. I'm glad that I have it. We're always listening. You know, it's funny. I curate the watch shop. I curate the TNH watch shop alone. Everything else at TNH gets done by a team. In one way, Anna. In one way, Michael, me, Logan, Aaron. Everyone's working on everything basically. But the curation of the watch shop is the only job that's done only by one person, and that's by me. I have a very strong passion for Cartier. In the past, I have avoided listing Cartier in the TNH watch shop for one reason alone. Well, for 2 reasons. One, they're hard to find. But 2, I didn't think that my passion was shared with everyone here, so I view them as bad inventory investments. Irrationally. I don't know why. I felt like, they're small, and men don't like to wear small watches, and forget it. I'll buy Datejust. And I love Datejust, and they're wonderful watches. It's one of my favorite watches in the world, right? But not too long ago, I just decided one day, I'm going to list a tank in the shop and see what happens. Sold in 2 minutes. I said, okay, I'm going to buy another tank, and tanks started flying off the shelf as I could find them. Again, much harder to find than Datejust, but still, I'm glad that I did it. And now tanks have become a pretty big part of the TNH watch shop, which is exciting. All right, so my topic today. First, my little rant. I was doing some vintage watch buying recently. As I said, I curate the watch shop. What I'm buying is in a relatively small kind of space, right? I buy fairly affordable vintage watches from Rolex, Omega, Cartier, Longines. Basically that. Of course, other things find their way in. We have a beautiful Tavan listed in the watch shop right now, a very historically significant watch, but mostly it's within the major brands and within relative affordability. That said, when I'm buying those watches, I do come across some more expensive, more important, more collectible watches. Right? And many of the watches I do see are by Patek Philippe. And Patek Philippe is a funny brand because everyone wants one. Right? I mean, everyone in the vintage watch world or the watch world period kind of looks at Patek Philippe as the grail, the brand. The watches themselves are in many cases no better or worse than Jaeger LeCoultre, or no better or worse than Zeron Constantin. But the branding and the marketing behind the Patek Philippe brand is so strong that people want them. And I am also a victim to this marketing. That said, because of the branding, watches that if they had a different name on the dial, like Zeron Constantin, would sell for $4,000, and Patek sell for 10, 11, 12, 20, 30, 60, 80, 100. It's crazy. They sell for millions, right? So finding value with the name Patek Philippe on it is nearly impossible. And almost actually impossible if you are not willing to explore different sizes. But if you're the kind of guy that actually will wear a watch that is of an old world size, right? Around the 30 to 33 millimeter, 30 to 34, kind of that's at the end of the value, then there are watches for you. And I'm going to tell you what they are in respect to Patek, and 2, kind of going to rationalize their sizing a little bit and make you feel a little bit more comfortable with it. Okay. The reference I'm talking about here is the Patek Philippe reference 96. It's a vintage Calatrava. Most of them measure 31 millimeters or 30 millimeters and change, 30.9 millimeters in size. But they came in a wide variety. They were produced in a wide variety of configurations. in rose gold, in yellow gold, in steel, and I would imagine in platinum, although I can't necessarily cite a reference in platinum. I'm sure that they also did come in platinum. They came with diamonds, they came with breguet numerals, they came with stick numerals, they came with Arabic in some ways. There were a lot of different configurations of this watch, some more collectible than others. For example, a stick indice yellow gold reference 96 is markedly less desirable and valuable than a breguet numeral steel 96. What's the price difference? 9,000 versus 50 maybe. That's a big break here. That said, because it is, one, a Patek Philippe, which is a grail of watch, kind of collecting, and two, because, and I know this sounds crazy, they wear so well. And again, I know that's me saying it, and I'm wearing a little vintage Cartier, and, what does my opinion matter? I'm already into small watches. I'm telling you, first of all, the height of their cases is pretty significant. If you compare them to something from vintage Omega in many instances, and Omega can be very beefy, but can also be very, very thin. If you compare it to certain Vacherons or even certain other Pateks, the 96 is a fairly bubbly watch. Even beyond that, their lugs shoot straight out nearly. They have a little bit of body to them, but they shoot quite far straight out and give a lug-to-lug presence that is larger than 31 millimeters. So really, you're wearing a watch that wears quite like a small 34. It's a big 31, but it wears like a small 34 from Patek Philippe, under $10,000 in most instances. And frankly, I bet if you really, really hunted and really, really, were very discerning, I bet you could have one in the sixes. That's incredible. Now, there's also an alternative perspective that says, why would you spend, even at a best deal, $6,000 in a watch you could get from Vacheron Constantin, which is quite arguably an equal brand to Patek, for $4,000? You're right. If you like Vacheron and if you don't care about Patek, then go buy the VC for $4,000. I might do the same thing. I'd like to own a Patek one day. Not sure which one it'll be, but I can definitely see the value in buying the Patek, and I can see the value in saying, you know what, leave it for the next guy. So that's it, guys. Keep your eyes open for the 96. Keep your eyes open to smaller watches. They really are very nice. Many of them wear a lot larger than they sound like they wear. All 40s aren't the same. Real quick, look at a vintage GMT Master 1675 versus a modern Supercase Submariner. These are very, very different watches. Why? Because you can't measure a watch with one dimension or one metric. It's not just case diameter. There's so much that goes into it. So there you go. All right, let's go into 2 to 3 questions, pick our best, and then give away a free t-shirt. Let's go, guys. What do you got? Very good question. Some people are saying the Rolex GMT Batman has been discontinued. People say it comes from the highest sources. None of the highest sources have told me. That said, I don't keep in constant contact with the highest sources or contact at all. I applied to Harvard. They never answered my application. So if they were to introduce new colors, I think it would be really nice for Rolex to stick with Pepsi, stick with Coke, stick with black for a while, and then introduce something that is equal to black and blue. Why? I feel like if you just start messing with colors and you just start doing that, it cheapens the whole idea. I think that once a brand, part of what makes Rolex so great in many instances, or the Batman so great, is that it is kind of it's one of a kind. It was the first new GMT released as far as colors in decades. That's special. And if you want to keep that, special feeling, same thing for the Hulk. The Hulk is a green sub. That hasn't been done. It's very, very, very new. So that's kind of what I think. I think that the fewer the better. And when they do it right. Next question. When buying a watch, you have to, kind of assess everything, right? You assess, quality of movement. You assess, I suppose, what the brand means. Absolutely, not I suppose. Quality of movement and construction overall, quality of the brand, quality of design, right? And unless you're willing to spend a ton of money, you're not going to get all of those things in one package. You have to pick you have to pick your priorities. For me, and this is funny, we're very different collectors. John Goldberger is one of the world's best collectors, and I am most certainly not. I'm a very passionate collector, but you cannot compare anything that I have to what a man like that has. But we are very public in both saying our priority comes down to aesthetic mostly, dial configurations and beauty. And if that's what you're driven by, then good for you. Go do that. Go pursue that. It doesn't have to necessarily be original. It doesn't have to necessarily be by a major brand, or it doesn't necessarily have to be be, powered by the most remarkably, most innovative movement, in-house movement, and the most well-designed movement. You can have one of those three things and have a home run watch if the price point is correct and appropriate. Best value tank. Tanks can be had in the $2,000 range. Tanks can be had between $2,000 and $5,000. The quote unquote best tanks in the world are more. Many of the tanks between $5,000 and $15,000. I don't find that great. I don't like the automatic tanks. I think that the bubble in the back makes them unattractive. I think it gets rid of that really thin profile that is classic with the tank. So I say the tank. It's a lower price point. Reverso is an incredible watch. I would consider owning one, definitely, but the tank really hits me in the gut, definitely. I think that if I certainly don't mean to imply what you're meaning by this. I'm not reading your mind. Many people look at the tank as a fashion accessory, as a way to kind of demean or belittle the tank. That's ridiculous. What is horology? It's a study of watches, right? That's how we use it, right? And what are watches? Watches aren't just tools, right? Watches have been tools. Watches will continue to be tools, but watches are pieces of art. They are design driven. Watches are not all equal, even if their material is. It was the Rolex Daytona that was powered by the 72 value caliber. Was it, empirically better than Hoyer's Carrera? No. Well, why is one 4 times the price, or 8 times the price, or 40 times the price? It comes down to design. So if you're going to say that a Paul Newman demands $200,000 or a $200,000 premium over its standard Daytona when there's no technical difference, how could you call the Cartier tank a fashion watch? It's a lot of reasons. One, they're German. People hate Nazis. Lange is not Nazis, but people do have resentment toward anything that had involvement with Nazis. That's just a thing. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. That does have something to do with it. People have told me their opinions on that. 2, it is German. Germany will never get as much respect by the masses as Switzerland, no matter how little we know Swiss watch made in Switzerland to mean. We know that means nothing anymore, but still, it's Swiss. It's Swiss watches. Patek's marketing budget, everything about Patek. I like Lange more in many instances. I think that Patek's Calatrava, with its undersized movement, is a disgrace. I use that word lightly. Next to Lange's 1815, a disgrace. The Calatrava is a more desirable watch, period, and it always will be. Sad. And true. Guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of AskTNH Live. Having a ton of fun. So glad to have Anna here doing it with us. I will see you all tomorrow. You guys follow us along on Instagram at Theo and Harris to be a part, not only our Instagram watch community, but these lives. They're a ton of fun. And do not forget to check out the watch shop at theoandharris.com if you have any interest in vintage watches. See you guys tomorrow.